Hello everyone, welcome to 5 Questions with LeRoy Butler, and we're here after a crazy weekend of NFL football. I think there were a lot of upsets, but I don't think there was a crazier game than one the Packers played against the Bengals. So many ups and downs and ups and downs. And I think let's go jump right into it. And I think one of the things that surprised a lot of people was the way Aaron Rodgers played. Not one of his best games.
No, and if you look at how he judges himself and how for the last 2 years voted amongst his peers as being the #1 player, in the league, it's a high standard. So you don't expect games like that. And we'll talk a little bit about, his first interception and X's and O's, so stay tuned for that. But overall, Tom, on some of his throws, it looked like it was already predetermined where he wants to go with the ball. He telegraphed a few, and he played poorly, his words. And I think him and McCarthy are not on the same page in the red zone. And I think that throws the whole offense out of rhythm on what they want to do.
Yeah.
And I think they don't have a plan B when that happens.
I think Cincinnati had a good game plan, too, which was get in the face of the receivers.
Yes.
And then once Finley's gone, I mean, you don't mind that so much if you have Finley, because you love man-to-man coverage with him, right?
Right.
But once he went out early, those receivers, they struggle with bump and run coverage.
Well, if you go all the way back to whenever they played Seattle, you think about when they played San Francisco at times, anytime defense gets up and disrupt the timing of the rhythm of the offense, it's a problem because, as Aaron Rodgers stated, he throws the ball to spots. If you're not in that spot, it can be a problem, especially for back shoulder throws and things of that nature.
Right.
So sometimes you have to change it up with screens and draws and things of that nature. Some things they did with Jonathan Franklin. But again, back to Rodgers, I think he knows this, Tom. But if he ever plays poorly like that, they're going to lose most games. But if you're in the defense and you got that many turnovers, you would expect an average quarterback to just keep you in it, especially if you got the #1 quarterback.
4 consecutive possessions, 4 turnovers.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Let's talk about the dust-up between him and McCarthy. Obviously, Rodgers was upset with one of the play calls. First, have you seen that before? Have you had a dust-up with one of your coordinators up, in the public like that? Did you ever see Brett have that kind of a thing with Holmgren?
Well, Brett and Holmgren, they had quite a few disagreements.
Right, but was it in public so that the cameras? I don't recall seeing
I don't recall seeing a lot on television, but it has happened. And it also has happened with other quarterbacks around the league. But let's get back to Aaron Rodgers and McCarthy. Now, they have to coexist. Because you remember, I think it was last year or the year before, McCarthy threw the challenge flag.
Right.
Rodgers was so demonstrative, and
really
people start to watch him a little bit on the sideline. So now, BJ and Rodgers have to separate them. It's almost like a son and a dad. You want to talk back, but you really shouldn't. But as a player, with all the testosterone going, I'm really upset. As coach, you got to just leave them alone. Just give them time to cool off, but you can never disrespect a coach. You got to let the coach have the last word. As players, we just got to keep our mouth shut and play. Because you may say something, like a couple of F-bombs on both sides, and you feel bad about it. Both sides say they're working on it. But this is a relationship that everybody should monitor, because Aaron isn't going anywhere, okay? Right. But if McCarthy feels like he's uncoachable, then, the play calling can suffer.
Right. And the main thing is, I think as a player, you got to get over it. I mean, you blew your stack, you did it, now move on and act like it never happened, right?
But see, what Aaron Rodgers is getting now nationally, because this week I've been getting a lot of phone calls from a lot of people asking me some questions. They seem to think he's kind of a prima donna, like everything must go his way, or this is how he acts.
Well, that's what, Greg Jennings has hinted towards that driver a little bit too.
Right,
so
and Aaron got to change that. And Aaron has to change that perception, though. And I know he's very guarded off the field, doesn't like people in his personal business, and he's not a hands-on type of guy like Brett Favre was. But he has to get the notion back that he's a team player, he's a leader, and he's doing everything to win. I'm not here for you guys to like me.
Right.
But otherwise, I am the guy you see on these commercials. I'm a happy, lucky guy. I'm just get caught up sometimes.
Let's talk about the difference between Tom Brady getting caught just, dressing down those guys.
Yes.
Now, they were younger guys. It wasn't Bill Belichick he was
Right,
dressing
right,
down,
right,
but
right.
it was still him going nuts. I don't think the perception was quite as bad of what Brady was doing.
And I say all quarterbacks do it. They want more from their guys. And it was a couple of years, Rodgers did noticeably, if a guy made a mistake, he'd hold him accountable right there on the field. And guys don't really like that.
Right,
and a lot of guys talked about that. So I think on this bye week, Rodgers has to understand that he's always watched. The number one watch guy on the sideline is Jay Cutler. People watch everything he does.
Yeah.
I think Aaron may be the new Jay Cutler now. People are going to blow it up, make such a big deal about nothing.
Right.
But if he really cares about his teammates and his coaches, he got to find a way for his personality and McCarthy personality to mend together.
Or
otherwise, it's a problem.
Don't show it outwardly because it sends kind of a bad signal.
And that's what McCarthy got. Just leave him alone.
And that's
Just
kind
let
of
him
what he
do it.
did. That's kind of what you got to give him
yeah.
credit. He said a few words,
Yeah.
let Rodgers calm down, then you saw him later talking
Yeah,
to him.
same thing with Johnny Manziel and his coach. After he got the personal foul at Texas A&M, unsportsmanlike, he walked Kevin Sumner and went to talk to him, and he just kind of looked like he blew him off. But when you're a coach and a quarterback, they have this unique relationship, almost like husband and wife.
Yeah.
You love each other, but it's sometimes you feel like, I just want to be left alone. It's best for the team.
Okay. You made a brief reference to it talking about Jonathan Franklin. I think one of the real surprising things of this whole year is how good their running game has been.
Yes.
I mean, they averaged 6.1 yards per carry down to their really what would be their fourth running back if you consider Lacey, Starks, John Kuhn, and then Franklin. So is that a reflection on the personnel they have back there, or is their running game just markedly improved behind that offensive line?
I think a lot of it is Aaron Rodgers, too, checking to the right plays. I think he's brilliant when it's come to that. And we also are finding out these guys are better run blockers than they are pass blockers. But if you can get Franklin out on the perimeter, he's going to do damage. But you also don't know if he can take that kind of beating with his size. He can get hurt at any time. And I think with James Starks, it's almost like a tease, Tom. He's so talented, but it's just a time when he's going to get hurt.
Yeah.
So hopefully they can get Lacey back and do a 1-2 punch with him, the two rookies, and hopefully these guys can stay healthy enough. Because if they have a good running game, now that offense can average 30 points a game, they'll win a lot of games.
Quick question on Franklin's 4th and 1 in which he fumbled. Critical play, obviously, was a turn. Was a difference in the game. Should he, in that situation, stay low and just plow like a quarterback sneak? Was he wrong in trying to dive over the top based on the way it was blocked?
I've asked 5 current running backs and 5 retired guys, and they all said that he did the right thing in running because he only had to get a yard or so. You blast through and you try to elevate. The problem is you don't think a guy can penetrate that quick and get a hand on you.
Right.
So, and I agree with the call. I agree with trying to run it. I agree with everything. You just got to put 2 hands on the ball and just try to get 1 yard. Not 2 or 3 or 4, get 1 yard. So that's football, though. Things like that happen. But the guy scoring off the play, Terrence Newman, who also did a Lambeau leap, by the way.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, he owed me some money for that.
Okay.
So I think the Packers got to get back to, don't be scared to run the ball just because that happened.
Okay. It seems like almost like an epidemic of hamstring injuries. And I'm going to go through this list of guys who are hurt right now with hamstring.
Let me hear it.
Morgan Burnett, he has not played a game yet.
Right.
Clay Matthews got hurt again with the hamstring.
He always has a hamstring.
Casey Hayward hasn't played a game yet.
That's a surprise.
John Kuhn was out last week with a hamstring. Jarrett Bush was out with a hamstring. Brad Jones had a hamstring, was a little bit limited coming out into the regular season. And Eddie Lacy had a hamstring in training camp, but seems to be, that seems to be over. But the point being that these are all guys who've had hamstring. That seems like a lot of guys to have hamstring. What do you think's going on there?
Well, I think a lot of it's stretching. I think a lot of guys take that for granted, stretching. And a lot of it, too, you have to take care of your body. Whenever you cramp up or you pull muscles during the week, not necessarily saying these guys are drinking enough fluids and things of that nature, But stretching, I used to stretch 30 minutes before I go to bed, 30 minutes when I woke up. I had no hamstring problems. A lot of guys take that for granted. Growing injuries, hamstrings are something that you try to get one more inch from your muscle when you're running, and you can actually pull it, and you could be down for weeks. And if you strain it, you can be down for weeks. So I think it's just a freak thing, but the guys, you got to take care of their bodies.
Okay. So this is, we're heading into the bye week, and this is the earliest the Packers have ever had a bye. If you're Mike McCarthy, what are you focusing on? He's given them all of this week off. Probably not a bad idea with the injuries, but when they come back, what, besides focusing on Detroit, what else do they need to do?
I got to get a hold of my team and let them know, listen, we're not out of it by a stretch. But I also got to let these guys know that every game plan from here on out, we have to implement it with the idea of winning games.
Right.
Get the focus back in that locker room. Because I think they're winning the physical battles, but they're losing it in stretches of game time. They're getting away from what they're good at. So this bye week, the coaches will be in. They're going to find out what they're good at, and they're going to do it.
Okay.
And that's what I think will help them win games. Because they got Detroit coming back, which they'll see one of the most prolific throwing passing games in the NFL.
And
so
we'll talk about that next week when we come back.
So Morgan needs to be back in. So
Well, thanks for joining us, and don't forget X's and O's right after this.
And you can go to LeRoyButlerInc.com to help with my anti-bullying program. And again, check out all my sponsors on our page down low. And again, thank you to the Salvation Army for our back-to-school program for the MPS schools.
We'll see you.